Generally, there are three rules that you're going to hear about in self-defense law, and that is castle doctrine, stand your ground, and duty to retreat. Of course, you're going to have to do individual research on the jurisdiction that you live in to figure out which one of these apply to you. Stand your ground is essentially a provision that allows for a person to defend themselves with deadly force when justified without the duty to retreat. Castle doctrine is essentially the same thing, but it allows you to defend yourself from unlawful entry to your home, your car, and your workplace from your curtilage, which is the home and the land around the home, so long as the person is actively trying to break into the house and not running away or something like that. Duty to retreat is a law where it's written in that you have to try to retreat before you use deadly force, as long as the situation allows for you to try to retreat. You have to do your research and figure out which of these apply to you. In North Carolina, stand your ground and castle doctrine both apply. Now, when it comes to concealed carry, one of the things that you're going to hear a lot if you take a course or if you talk to people about concealed carry is, or should be, avoidance. Obviously, you don't conceal carry to go and get into something where you have to use your gun, but instead, you want to avoid those kinds of situations. Unfortunately, there's videos on the internet of people who, they ignore the signs because of what? They don't want to seem afraid or something. People walking up to them in ski masks, people walking up to them with guns, and they don't move. They don't go anywhere. They just sit there. Obviously, as a person who concealed carries, or a person that doesn't, if you see guns and ski masks, you probably don't want to be in that area. If you see people being aggressive or people acting crazy around you, you probably don't want to be in that area. So the number one thing that you should try before you end up getting involved in any other way is avoiding those situations. If you see a person pacing back and forth with a knife in the street, don't go try to talk to that person. Stay away. Call 911 or something. But either way, if it's me, I'm not trying to deal with that. I don't have enough time. So there's three things that you're going to have to be able to articulate before you engage in an imminent threat. And those three things are ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. Ability, summed up, is the attacker has the ability to harm someone permanently or kill them. And that can be articulated in a lot of different ways. It could be a person standing over someone choking them. It could be a knife. It could be a gun. It could be a pipe. It just depends on his intent. All right, now we get to opportunity. Opportunity means there are people that within their range, within their reasonable range, that they can cause harm to or have shown the intent to cause harm to. So if you have a gun, obviously the opportunity is much further out than if it was just a knife or if it was a pipe or a hammer or something like that. Opportunity then factors in more things like barriers. He could be across a wall or down a hallway from someone. He could be on the other side of a door, things like that. So it factors in time, opportunity, the weapon that he's using, all of those different things. And then we go to jeopardy. Jeopardy is essentially, have they displayed the intent to cause permanent or deadly harm to someone? Have they been threatening people? Have they been, making motions like they're going to hurt someone, they may shoot someone? That is jeopardy. And all of those things are what you would use to articulate an imminent threat. Now we get into what's proportionate to what they could commit on another person or you. In these situations, it's important to keep in mind that your use of force should be agreed upon as justified by the normal person, by any normal person that may have witnessed this or may be seeing this in court. Once you've identified an imminent threat, then now the force that you use should be proportionate to what that person could use or is using. The use of force continuum is a term that's typically used by law enforcement and security. And if you look it up right now, every option that you see on Google is going to have something to do with law enforcement or security. So I've created my own use of force continuum for civilian usage. Essentially, now you see that there's a build up, right? It goes from you see someone who may be aggressive or who may potentially be dangerous, and you should stay away from that person. You should try not to cross paths with that person. But if they come towards you, or if it's a situation where they're already coming at you, then you got verbal warnings. They're verbally assaulting you. They're yelling insults at you. They're threatening you. You can verbally warn that person, not to tell them that you have a gun, but to say, hey, stay away from me, or to tell them that you don't want to be involved in what they got going on. Then it goes from further there. You have incidental contact, or maybe contact that was, it can be classified as incidental. He may have done it on purpose, but it wasn't going to hurt you, and it wasn't intended to hurt you. And then you can, soft hand, open hand, get him away from you, or back away. You may even have to push the guy, depending on what he's doing, to get him off of you. But you don't want to escalate the situation. It's not to escalate. Instead, it's to meet them where they are and potentially start de-escalating. Then you have assaultive aggression, right? Where a person may have slapped you or something. But in that case, now you have the option to use pepper spray. If you're a smaller person, you can use a taser. You can use hard hands against a person who is actually assaulting you. These things are reasonable to what they just gave you. He might have just hit you. He might have just slapped you or something like that, and now you've given them a reasonable response to that. Things like pepper spray and tasers have a much higher chance of you being able to use that and get away from them, and call the police somewhere where you're not in danger or other people aren't in danger, than say a knife or a gun. Those are deadly force, and if you were to pull that out on a guy who just slapped you, it's going to escalate the situation. And we've seen that happen so many times, where a person gets punched and they pull out a gun, and then another person pulls out a gun and they all start shooting at each other. Or maybe a person gets punched and they pull out a gun, and then that person grabs their gun, and now it's a situation where they're fighting each other for their lives. Whether they were the aggressor or not, he just escalated it to a point where their lives are at stake now. So having things like pepper spray and having things like tasers allow you to kind of bridge the gap between deadly force and that incidental force, where maybe the guy didn't intend to hurt you. But either way, it gives you another opportunity to get away without having to hurt somebody, or without someone else getting hurt, potentially. Because things like pepper spray, I don't know if you've ever been hit with pepper spray, but it'll stop you from what you were doing. And then finally, at the top of the continuum of force is deadly force. That only comes when a person has displayed the ability to cause permanent harm or to kill another person, cause death. And before this situation, you're not drawing your gun and flashing it. You're not drawing your gun and pointing it at anybody, because now you've escalated it. Your gun is only drawn when this amount of force from the assailant is displayed, because otherwise, once again, you've escalated it. You don't want it to get there. Unless this situation is played out in such a way that the first thing that they've showed you is they have the capability to cause death or permanent harm, your gun should not be your first option. Some of these situations have escalations. Some of these situations are instant, where a person comes up and they have a gun in your face. Could be a robbery or something like that. In that situation, there's opportunity, you or whoever's being robbed. There's jeopardy. They have the gun pointed at them. And then there's the ability. It's a gun. He could kill someone or permanently harm someone. A person could be paralyzed or worse, like I said, killed. In that situation, deadly force is justified. And these situations are sometimes instant. You have to be able to articulate these things incredibly fast. Fortunately, I think that most people have the capability of saying, yeah, this person has a gun in front of me, so yeah, this is obviously death. Life is on the line here. Now that you've identified the threat and you've identified the amount of force that they're using and the appropriate amount of force, then once again, as I was saying before, you can use that and potentially get away from this situation. If it's deadly force, of course, you want to stay where you are and call law enforcement so that they can put a report in. You don't want to run away from that, because in court, that's something that will definitely be used against you. And aside from that, you should be carrying with a license anyway, so there shouldn't be anything that they can use against you in that situation. Once you are able to articulate the three things, ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, you should be able to cover yourself with an accurate report saying exactly what happened and why you used that force. Outside of that, you shouldn't really say anything else. Talk with your lawyer on that one. Talk with your lawyer on those things and let them figure out what needs to be said next. I just hope that of all the people watching this video, that deadly force isn't something that you have to get involved in. I don't hope for these situations to happen, and you shouldn't hope as a concealed carrier that these situations happen so that you have to do this, because that stuff is, you don't want to be involved with it, and it's not fun to have to fight back on those situations. So hopefully this video can help you to articulate those things and figure out exactly what that should look like, even if you haven't been in that situation or don't plan to be. We never plan for these things to happen, and when they do happen, this is what you have to work with. Go research your laws, figure out which ones apply to you. Carry with that knowledge. Carry knowing that what you're doing, and when you have to use this, you know exactly what's going on, so that no one can take it away from you and say that you were the aggressor or you were in the wrong in these situations, because you properly identified ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, and your use of force was justifiable as appropriate. So I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next ones.